am just back from Guyana, from the jungles, and I'm doing my kind of post-trip unpack so that you can see what I brought and what worked and what didn't work and what I would bring again and what I would have left home. I would leave home if I did a trip again. Just so you know, I took a red eye back and I got back last night, so I'm still like really tired and my lip is still totally jacked, but I'm going to get this done and hope that it helps. And if, as always, if anybody has any questions about the trip or what I brought, what I didn't bring, what I should have brought, etc., just put them in comments or send me an email at what's my email address? It's abushinthewoods@gmail.com. All right, here we go. First thing to know is that when I came back, they made me check my rods, which I knew was going to happen. And I actually thought I was going to be able to get them into my bag here, and I didn't. So what I did was I just put these on top of my bag, and then I paid somebody $12 US at the airport to basically put a giant condom over my entire suitcase, including the rods, and that took care of it, and everybody was happy about that. I'm not sure it was the greatest system in the world, but it worked. It worked for me. Looking at the rods that I brought 5 rods, and I tell you what, I used every single one of them a whole bunch. It was not excessive by any stretch of the imagination. All right, I am wearing tie-dye pajamas, but that's just how I roll, and that's okay. So what did I bring? I brought, let's see, this. One of these is I promise, you can't tell. One of these is a 12 weight. I use that only for arapaima and not a whole lot. I'll get into that a little bit, but you definitely, having a 12 weight for arapaima was a good idea. One of these is a 9 weight, and I use that quite a bit. One of these is an 8, and one of these is a 6. And I actually use the 8 weight the most, and then the 6 weight after that. And then probably the 10, my 10 weight is in here. And I use that quite a bit, and then the 12 weight was the one I used the least. But that said, I would recommend having a 12 weight if you are planning on fishing for arapaima, because they're friggin' huge and the flies are huge. I'll get into that, and you need a good rod to throw those flies. Okay, getting into my stuff. I brought some swim shorts that I wore mostly walking around Georgetown and kind of my first day. I don't like to fish in shorts. I'm always worried about hooks. I tend to get sunburned. I always miss a spot on my legs. So, and then in the evenings, I don't like them because of the mosquitoes and the bugs and stuff. So I only brought 2 pairs of shorts. And I only wore 1. So I would only bring 1 pair of shorts. T-shirts. I learned from a trip that I did in Montana last year that I like to sleep in T-shirts and I like to have a clean T-shirt. So I brought, I think 2 or 3 clean T-shirts, and that ended up being good. I kind of wore 1 to sleep in. I switched out midweek, and then I actually had put 1 in my bag to wear on the airplane when I got home, and that, like, on the way home to be able to have something clean, and that worked real well. And here's my toiletries bag. The one thing I highly, highly, highly recommend if you do this trip is that you bring some sort of hand sanitizer. There was nowhere to wash your hands, and if you wanted to get your hands cleaned off before you ate or something, you had to have hand sanitizer. Otherwise, you were just eating whatever was on your hands, and that's not something I like to do. So I definitely recommend some sort of hand sanitizer. I bring these face cleaning wipes. I really like them. I use them at least once or twice a day. Highly recommended. I'll get into that more and more. And then a lot of these are just kind of my standard toiletries. I like face lotion. I like a little deodorant. I like a little toothpaste to clean my teeth with. I like a toothbrush. I personally like some floss, so this is my toiletry kit that I brought. Worked great. I brought 2 pairs of polarized sunglasses. I only used 1, but I was happy to have a second in case something happened to the first pair. So I always bring like a light fleece or something for the flight because I tend to get cold on airplanes. And this was perfect. When I got there, I stuck it in a pillowcase that I had brought and used it as a pillow, and that was perfect. So I always recommend some sort of a light jacket like this to keep you warm. I did it. I do it. I like it. It was great. It was perfect. Pajamas, I just brought my standard pajamas. I slept in these every night, and that worked great. The only reason it wasn't totally disgusting by the end of the week was that there was a shower. So I was actually able to take a shower every night and kind of go to bed somewhat clean, which I think helped keep my pajamas clean. Had I been there for longer, or had there not been a shower, I probably would have wanted 2 pairs of pajamas just because they got really kind of gross. They would have gotten gross just from me being so dirty when I got into them. But something comfortable to sleep in. I brought a belt because my wading pants are a little loose, so that's on you. All right, this ended up being the bag of clean stuff that I packed as the clean things so that I wouldn't get them dirty when I came home and just ended up washing everything. I brought a bunch of socks because they told me I was going to wear socks standing on the front of the boat because the front of the boat got real hot, and I didn't actually end up wearing them. I either was barefoot, or I have these kind of water shoes that I wore, or if I was going from rock to rock, like we'd go to boat and hop out and get on a rock, I just wore Crocs, and that worked great. So I brought way too many pairs of socks. I feel like that happens every time. So I guess up to you how you like to weigh, but I didn't need the socks. I brought this hat with mosquito thing, and I didn't need it at all. They're really, I know people think like, oh, you're going kind of in the area of the Amazon or the jungle, mosquitoes, but there really weren't many mosquitoes. I was really super surprised. So I didn't need this. And the hammocks all have integrated mosquito nets. So at night, I thought I was going to be wearing this to sleep in so the mosquitoes stay off my face, but I totally didn't need it. It's literally still brand new. This is a microfiber washcloth I didn't use, but I did bring a microfiber towel that I used every night after my shower, and I would highly recommend doing that. These are all the extra buffs that I brought, neck gaiters. I used one every single day, but I didn't use them all, but I really recommend those just to keep the sun off you because you're on the, you're exposed in the boat, and then if the bugs get bad, it can help keep you from eating them, which is always nice. So they told me, the fly shop that I booked a trip with told me to bring a cotton sheet like this to sleep in as my blanket, and I did, and it was nice, but for me it wasn't enough. They said this was all you're going to need to keep you warm in the hammock at night, and I was not warm the first night when I did this. It was there was some period of time where I got real cold at night, and so luckily I had brought this, which is just kind of a lightweight kind of camping blanket, and I used this every night, and it was awesome, and I was super comfy and super warm, and this was perfect, and I was really, really glad I had it. And actually on the way home I was sad that I hadn't put it in my carry-on because I was really cold on my flight and had to sleep with my arms pulled into my shirts, but this would have been great. So I have never bought one of these. I bought this for this trip, and it was awesome. So I really recommend like a nice light camping blanket to help offset the chill at night. These are the fleece pants that I wore on the flight there, and then I changed into shorts when I got there because it was cold in San Francisco when I left. And then I just stuck these again in my pillowcase and used them for a pillow. And I thought that worked real well. And then I put them back in my backpack to carry on the plane, and I changed on the plane to out of my shorts so that I was warmer on the plane, and I thought that worked great. I brought 2 pairs of Crocs. I'm kind of a Croc convert. I hated them, and now I kind of love them. These are the furry line ones, and I had expected to be wearing them around camp, but camp ended up being just completely sandy. So I thought it was going to end up getting really uncomfortable if I stuck sandy feet into these fur line Crocs. So I didn't wear these at all. The only shoes I wore were these, my regular Crocs. I wore these every night walking around camp and on the boat. I took them on the boat every day. And wore them if I needed to do a quick hop out. And then I have some other shoes in here that I'll show you when I get to them that are water shoes that worked really great. And I would definitely recommend something like that, a closed-toed tennis shoe style shoe for walking around the jungles. I'll talk more about that. I brought this dry bag for putting my camera in. It was great. I always bring a few extra dry bags just to throw stuff in, and they're just so convenient to have. And then at the end of the day, you can use it to hack. This one got kind of dirty, so I didn't do that, but I was really glad to have this waterproof bag. Here's another dry bag. Again, I didn't need it to pack, and I didn't use it, but always happy to have a couple extra dry bags. Some more toiletries. I brought camp soap, and this is some hair product, so I look pretty. But this camp soap I was going to use, and then I didn't end up using because I had soap, so I didn't need it. I mean, everybody was bathing in the river. The shower just pumped river water up, but there was some soap there, so I didn't need it, but I still think it was good to have, just in case they didn't have soap or whatever on the river, just taking a quick bath. Always good to have. And then I didn't end up needing to do laundry, but if I did, this biodegradable all-purpose camp soap is great for laundry. So I could have washed my clothes in the river, which would have been real helpful. So here's the microfiber towel that I brought. I really recommend it. It was great just to wipe my mouth down after I brushed my teeth or whatever. And then every night after my shower, I used it so that I was dry when I put my clothes in. I got real lucky with the weather. It only rained one night, so I could actually get dry and have all my things dry. But had I wanted to get under the tarp and dry myself off at night, I would have been able to use that, and it would have been great. So I definitely recommend microfiber towel. Quick dry underwear. If you're a wet waiter, I cannot strongly recommend quick dry underwear enough. It is just wonderful to have. Keep your underwear from going up your butt crack and itching. I brought a Gore-Tex raincoat. I only needed it one day, but that one day I was really, really glad to have it. So I definitely recommend a good light raincoat shell or a poncho of some sort, just in case you get rain, keep the rain off you. It was really great to have. A headlamp. I should have brought two. So they actually warned me about walking around at night and making sure that I had a really bright, good headlamp, because there's some sort of, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a venomous snake that lives in the Guyana jungle that likes to hang out on trails. So they were saying at night, just walk real slow, use a bright setting on your headlamp, and make sure you're being careful where you put your feet so you don't get bit by the snake. So unlike other trips where I've done where you have moonlight, the tree canopy really blocks a lot of that moonlight, and it's raining a lot of the time. So you do need a headlamp of some sort, or a light, a flashlight, something that can illuminate the path when it gets dark, which it does really early. So a headlamp or flashlight is absolutely crucial. Make sure it's a bright one, and then bring extra batteries as well, or a second redundant system. If I went back, I'd bring two. To be honest, it was really important this trip. Wet wading pants. I brought 3 pairs. That was about right. These are quick dry. Everything should be quick dry because it rains so much that you're just going to be wet and miserable if you don't have something that's going to dry on you real quick. I love these, UV 50 solar shirts with hoods. They keep the sun off me. This is what I wear when I fish pretty much every day. I brought one for every day I was going to be fishing because if they don't dry, they get really smelly. I don't know if anybody else has had that issue, but they just stink like mold real bad. So I brought one for every day of fishing, thinking that I would at least have something that didn't stink. And it ended up working out real well because I heard that things don't necessarily dry because of the humidity and it's raining every day. So I brought one, and I was happy that I had one. I ended up wearing all of them at least once. So, sometimes I would wear one and then let it dry and put it on again. Definitely, I think if you're going to overpack, I would recommend overpacking on that, on your sun shirts, your fishing shirts, because things can get smelly and wet. And sometimes if you want to change at lunch into a cleanish shirt, it's nice to have that. So if you're going to overpack there. Okay, bras. 98.5% of the people watching this video don't need to know about bras, but if you're in that little small percentage, wear a bra if you want. And another dry bag. So, okay, flies. This is the fly roll that I brought with me. One thing about flies, this is probably in the other videos I haven't quite made yet, I'm assuming I will. There aren't any real commercially available flies that work for arapaima. They just don't make them. So you have to tie them yourself, or what I did was I had them custom tied for me. And I got them custom tied, and the guy that custom tied them just did a phenomenal job. But, these flies for arapaima are huge. They got to be on like an 8/0 hook. And they got to be synthetics because there's so many piranhas that'll just destroy your flies. So they're big, bulky, some push a lot of water, all synthetic, 8/0 hooks. So the one thing the guy was upset with me about is that I had a bunch of these PB, EP peanut butter flies, and he said these hooks were too small. These are the standard ones that you buy. Some of these are the standard sizes that they sell, that you buy. Some of these were off the shelf. Some of them were custom tied, but the normal sizes, and the hooks were too small. So they wanted me to have at least 4-aught hooks on every size, even these smaller EP peanut butter flies. So 4-aught and up, like this. They didn't like this because the hook was too small. And then I ended up going through my supply of Clousers really quickly. I don't think I have any left, but flies kind of like this, like Clousery style flies worked real well. They work great. We went through them, green and white flies. They wanted me to have more green and white flies than I had. So I would definitely recommend tying a bunch of those or getting a bunch of those synthetics materials. I would also say too, I brought a bunch of gurglers and they really didn't work, but this used to be a pole dancer. It used to have a really long tail and we used it so much and it was so effective that it's gone. So pole dancer flies, this is another fly. This is what happens when the piranhas get your fly. This fly used to look like those. So the piranhas just do a job on your fly. And that's why you need so many flies, because they will just destroy them. You don't lose so many, but you just, the piranhas just demolish them. So here's, let's see. Oh, poppers. I recommend a bunch of bass poppers like this. So much fun. There's so much great topwater fishing in the Guyana jungle. Definitely encourage you to bring a lot of poppers. We didn't use the mice, but we used poppers. So here's another pole dancer. You can see it's kind of mangled because we used it so much. The white pole dancer and the black pole dancer are both really, really effective. Super great fly. I really recommend it. Fly line. I brought some extra lines. I didn't end up needing them, but I was glad that I had them because I certainly could see fly line getting broken. And I think it would have been good to have an extra fly line. I didn't use my lotion. Again, socks. These are filters for a water bottle that I brought. I didn't end up using it because they had water for me. I probably should have if I wanted to be eco-groovy about it, but I just didn't kind of want to carry this around all day. And then because there's so much sediment in the water, it would have gone through filters real quick. So I didn't use it. But I kind of regret not using it because we ended up going through a lot of plastic bottles, and that's not great. Okay, another shirt. Here are all my dirty clothes. I stuck them in here. So this is all shirts, sun shirts, quick dry pants, quick dry underwear. And that's really it. That's the socks I wore on the plane. But other than that, that's all I had in terms of dirty clothes. So those are the kind of key things, you know, if you're going to bring nothing else, bring quick dry clothes, something to protect you from the sun, and maybe something to dry off with. And that's really the key. I brought a ton of insect repellent. I never even opened this bag. There's just not a lot of insects. I know that seems really surprising because we were in the jungle, but it really wasn't bad. It's the dry season. And the wet season, I think it's really bad, but the only time you can fish is in the dry season. Sorry, itchy. And it really wasn't bad at all, the insects. So I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't need that. Hats, I tend to fish in baseball caps. I brought 2. I kind of only ended up wearing 1, but I'm glad I had an extra just in case. Another pair of sunglasses, always. Okay, reels and stuff. So obviously I brought 5 rods. And I ended up bringing 5 reels and 2 spools. And the spools were for the 10 and the 12 weight. And they were for different line weights. So I had an intermediate and a sinking for the 10 and the 12. And they got frustrated with me that I didn't have an intermediate and a sinking for all my rods. They wanted me to have all 3 line weights, a floating, an intermediate, and a sinking for every single one of my rods. And definitely there were times where I wished I had a sinking line or at least an intermediate line on the 6 weight and the 8 weight, or at least heavier flies. I didn't have any of that. It could have been, a Versalead or something just to add on there to get it down faster, or heavier flies. We ended up having to use split shot. As you can bring split shot. I tend to hate split shot, but if I had to do it again, I would definitely bring at least an intermediate or a sinking line for every single line weight instead of only having a floating line for my 6, my 8, and my 9 with 2 line weights, the heavier line weights for the 10 and the 12. So definitely, if you're going to spend money do it on buying extra spools with different line weights so that you can get down when you need to, because that was a challenge on certain parts of the river that we were on. I brought gloves. You really need something on your rod hand, whether it's a glove that's got some finger protection or some tape. These fish are so strong, and you've really got to just set that hook, and you've got to grip that line so hard, and you're doing so much stripping, you just absolutely tear your hand up, and you need some gloves for your fingers. So I really recommend gloves and or tape. I used both, and I was glad I did. They also help with sun protection too, which is another kind of added bonus of wearing gloves. This is the tape I use. This is just medical cloth tape. It's the stuff that has a lot of bend to it and isn't so stiff. It stays on a little bit better, but that's what I use when I'm doing a lot of streamer stripping and stuff. Here's kind of my other, this is just more personal items, extra medications. I brought stuff for the tummy troubles, Pepto, and I brought some antibiotics just in case. I didn't end up needing it, luckily, which was good, but I was glad to have it. So definitely, you know, you're going into the jungle. You want to do your pre-travel health screening and make sure you've got medications, because you're really, really far from medical help. So if something goes wrong, you want to be able to self-rescue as best you can. It's just a little tripod I didn't end up using. So what I did on the flight out, I stuck a bunch of flies in here and put this in my backpack, and then I stuck the big fly holder in my suitcase in case they lost my suitcase. At least I would have some flies, because I had my reels and my rods on my rucksack and carried it on the plane. And that way I would at least be able to do a little bit of fishing or something if they lost my big piece of luggage. If you want to be kind of that precautious, go for it. Okay, pliers. These are great pliers. I don't know, I've heard that they're hard to get to or find these days. These are the Dr. Slicks. These have a great little line cutter that snips through the 800-pound test, like just right through it, and then obviously helps get hooks out. I just hooked this onto my rucksack, my backpack every day, right here, and stuck it in here, and we used it all the time. So you want a good pair of saltwater pliers with something that's going to be able to cut through heavy line. These are great ones, but if you can find some others that are great too, Godspeed. But definitely bring something like this. I brought compression socks. I do that when I'm going to be doing some sort of fishing where I have to be standing without shoes all day. My ankles tend to swell, especially in the heat. So I always bring them, and then honestly, I never use them, even though yesterday and the day before, I really probably could have used them. They probably would have helped. But I think they're a good thing to have. I also wish that I had brought like a golf ball, because I could rub my feet down at night, because my feet got pretty beat up. So leaders, I'll talk about that. I actually used the floatant. There was some flies, some fish that were taking dries. Came in real handy. A fly comb, I think, is a good idea. These flies get pretty beat up and they get pretty tangled. So bringing a fly comb for those synthetic and bucktail flies is a good idea. Kind of keep them looking good. All right, here's my bag with all of my leaders. This is basically my saltwater fishing bag, leader bag, and it's got, you can see, go into the bag, people. Every leader you can imagine, right? So there's like 30, 40, 80, 100, 50. So we use the 100 on the Arapaima. I get that some people think there's like some sort of like dick extension and using a lighter tippet for a really big fish. I don't get it. I want to land the fish. Those fish are hard enough to catch without hobbling yourself by using a really light leader. You have to set the crap out of those fish, and you know, a lot of times maybe even penetrate a little bit of bone or something. I mean, why do you want to travel all that way and finally find a fish and then make a cast and strip in a way that actually gets the fish to take? You go through all that, and then you go to set, or the fish makes a run or something, and your leader breaks. I mean, I don't get it. So I used heavy leaders. I used 100 on Arapaima. For some of the Payara, the vampire fish, we were using 40-pound leader. We didn't use much of the 80, and we didn't use much below 20. So 20 is really the lightest that I would go for that style of fishing. And also, the other thing is that there's piranha in the rivers, and they are just chomping at everything. And I think they tend to nick the leaders a lot. So when we broke off fish, we were thinking that it was because the piranha had kind of chewed through the leader a little bit. Or even the vampire fish have these huge teeth. And when they're taking that fly, they can nick your leader. And just having a thicker leader that's going to give you a little bit of protection in case that happens. They've nicked it. You've gone from 100-pound to now you're on 60 or something. I just think it helps to have a little extra cushion if your objective is to land fish like mine was. So, if you want to be like a badass and go out there and do it all with, 10-pound tests or light leaders, go for it. Me, I went with the heaviest leader I could get away with. I had no problem turning over my flies with these rods, but definitely bring a variety so that you've got a leader for every situation. Okay, here's some 1X leader. Did not use it. Don't recommend bringing it. GoPro crap. Ziplocs. I brought these just in case. I didn't end up using them. I'm not sure they really would have done a good deal. I mean, these are really good nippers, but I didn't use them at all. I brought them just in case. So I don't think you need them. So here are the water shoes that I brought. These are Tevas. I'm not even sure Teva makes these anymore, but these have, theoretically really grippy leather, and then the water, you can see they've got holes on them. The water just drains right out of them. So they're really designed for being in the water. They don't hold any water. Something like this, that's kind of like a sneaker, is a really great thing to have. You're walking through the jungle to get to the ponds to fish for arapaima. And I wanted a closed-toed shoe, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a big hiking boot, but I wanted a closed-toed shoe that was going to cover and protect my feet. And I am glad I had it. And that's the same thing I will say about the Crocs, is that I would not have wanted to be walking around campsite at night in flip-flops. If you're a flip-flop master and you can do whatever in flip-flops and climb rocks and do all kinds of crap in flip-flops and you don't hurt your feet, great, go for it. Wear flip-flops. If you're not worried about snakes and scorpions and big-ass spiders stabbing you in the side of the foot, go for it. Wear flip-flops. Me? I was worried about all that stuff. So I brought closed-toed shoes. I brought Crocs that cover the sides and top of my feet. I brought, water shoes that actually are kind of like sneakers. I did not bring hiking boots. I did not need hiking boots, but I did want something that was actually going to protect my feet. And I would recommend that you do that too. But, I'm not your mom, so I'm not going to call you up and make sure, but that's my recommendation. All right, here's a little thing on Guyana so that I could figure out where I was in the world. I really had no idea. Leaders. So one thing is that they told me to bring leaders, but they didn't tell me to bring wire leader, and we really needed wire leader. Don't forget your wire leader. Those piranhas are a menace. You're going to want to have something they can't chew through. So bring wire leader. That's like, bring wire leader and bring different line weights for something to get you down. I did not, and I was sad about it. There's some more spools and reels. Spools and reels. Again, I can't have too much on that stuff. GoPro crap. Here's the pillowcase that I brought. This was great, just to make yourself a pillow out of it. Worked great. Feminine hygiene products. Again, 98.5% of people watching this video don't need that. If you do, obviously, bring your feminine hygiene products. That's pretty much it. Here's another t-shirt, underwear, bras. Again, most people watching don't need it. Crap they gave me on the plane. Some trash. And that's it for that bag. Let's see what else. I brought my nice camera in here. I was glad to have it. I brought a drone. They confiscated it from me at the airport. They took it when I landed. They said I wasn't allowed to have it without a permit. I'm calling bullshit on the whole, you're not allowed to have a drone in Guyana without a permit. I looked up the rules. You can if it's less than 7 kilograms and you're not using it for business, which I was not. And I tried to explain that to them, and they didn't care. So they ended up detaining my drone and holding it for me at the airport until I got back. So I couldn't use it all. I was later told by some of the people on the ground there in Guyana that they were probably just looking for a bribe, and I should have slipped them a 20. But, bribing federal officials is not actually within my skill set. So it never even occurred to me, and I wasn't going to go there. So I'm not sorry that I didn't try to bribe anybody to keep my drone, but just heads up, if you want to bring a drone into Guyana, try to get that permit so that they don't take it away from you, because otherwise they might. Or if you're the kind of person that wants to bribe people, I don't want to know about it. So I brought a waterproof bag. You know, any waterproof bag will do, but definitely it should be waterproof. You know, it's just wet, and there's so many creepy crawlies. You know, this bag here, something that closes really well. You want that because otherwise things may crawl into your bag, and you don't want that. So you want to be able to close this up at night, close it up when you're not there, and then not worry about coming back and having a little guest, having taken up residence in your bag. I had put some things like gel caps, like vitamins, in this pocket and left it on the deck of the boat, and they melted. So just be aware, it gets really hot, and if you have something in this pocket, you're going to want to turn it upside down so it doesn't stay in the sun if they're like gel caps, because they will 100% melt. I brought my noise canceling headphones. I mostly use them on the plane. Kind of love them. They were great. And there's not really anything else in here, but you do want something waterproof. And again, I just put my pliers on here, and that was perfect. I have nothing else to tell you about gear. Didn't need a net. Wouldn't recommend bringing a net. You don't need it. They tend to hand line everything in anyway, and carrying a net just wouldn't have done anything, you know. But they had one of those grippers to like lip the fish and get it. You really want that. A lot of these fish are just gnarly in terms of their teeth, and you do not want your hands anywhere near their mouths for the most part. So if you have one of those lip grippers and you want to bring it, that's probably a good idea. I just let the guides handle that and didn't really do any of that until they had kind of settled the fish down, and I knew exactly where I could grab it and I wasn't going to get hurt. Gloves are also helpful. Like sometimes grabbing the bass, they have these really sharp gill plates, and I actually cut my hands on those. So gloves are a really good idea on this trip, more so than on any other trip I've ever done. And just keeping your hands and your face away from the fish as much as possible. I thought the hammocks were real comfortable. I was surprised. It was some of the best sleep I've ever gotten on a camping trip. My shoulders didn't hurt. My hips didn't hurt. I am a side sleeper, and I struggled to get comfortable a little bit in the hammocks. And I think that they do have side sleeper hammocks that are specifically designed for that. So if you're a side sleeper and you want to check that out, that might be something that could make you more comfortable. I didn't do that. I used the hammocks they had, and it worked out just fine. I took melatonin most nights and just knocked myself out pretty early because we got up really early, and I needed to sleep. But I was actually pretty comfortable. I was never sore. I never kind of, couldn't turn my head or anything. So that was surprisingly good. I brought body wipes. Body wipes are always nice, especially for the latrine and just a quick wipe down. If for whatever reason you don't have time or you don't want to shower, wipes are always great. And I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, hit me up in the comments or send me an email, abushinthewoods@gmail.com, and I will do my best to answer your question as fully and completely as I can. And then, of course, by the time this gets posted, I will have posted a number of other videos about the trip that should answer a lot of questions. But I'm always here, hopefully, if you have more questions. So I definitely recommend it. It's an amazing experience. So get out there and fish Guyana in the jungle.